Hello there. Imagine you're the most productive person in the world. You get every single thing on time, you have perfect physical and mental health, you look like a Greek god, you dress like a model, you feel like you're the happiest person this planet has ever seen, you have lots of friends, all of them are loyal, and you've never had an argument with any of them, and actually you don't experience negative emotions at all. Everything is just immaculate. Does this seem like a real life situation to you? For me, neither. The chances are it will never be. But at least we can try. After 80 years of research, what is the secret formula to happiness? And it's not that difficult. While creating this video, I realized that it's even more exciting than I thought. According to this study, if you make this mistake, your performance will be equivalent to the performance of a drunk man. It sucks, though it feels like it doesn't. Physical inactivity contributes to many deaths around the world every year. According to the World Health Organization, people who are insufficiently active have from 20 to 30% increased risk of death compared to people who are sufficiently active. Sometimes inactivity is even compared to smoking. So, what do? Obviously, you should move more throughout your week. And when it comes to tracking this, the first couple of things that come to my mind is using a fitness tracker or a phone. I use the first option. There are some metrics which let me know how much I moved this week. For example, when I stayed mostly at home during a week of heavy rain, I noticed that I didn't move as much as it's usually recommended by guidelines. And there are notifications which make my tracker vibrate if I've been sitting for too long. And another good news is that you can bunch things I'm talking about in this video together. So while avoiding physical inactivity, you may also avoid another mistake which I'm gonna talk about in a minute. And it's not that difficult. Minimum recommended amount of time you should spend doing some kind of physical activity is not that much. And just think about the variety of options you have. You can play basketball, football, soccer, volleyball, tennis, or maybe you're more into swimming or mountain biking, or skateboarding, snowboarding, hiking, skiing, playing hockey, jogging, doing calisthenics, or you just like walking in the park next to your home. You can definitely find something suitable for you. And it doesn't have to take equipment and lots of time. You can, for example, park your car a couple of blocks from the place you work at, or maybe take a longer route to school or college if you're a student. You don't have to be a world-class athlete to reach the needed minimum of physical activity. But the thing I recommend paying attention to is consistency. Choose something you would stick to no matter what week it is. If you live somewhere where snowboarding is available for a limited amount of time throughout the year, then maybe only snowboarding won't be enough. Find substitutions in such cases. I, for example, always have an option to do cardio in the gym when the weather is too bad outside. Okay, enough of that. Let's move to another interesting thing. What if I tell you that there is a study which lasted more than 80 years, one of the goals of which was to find out what basically makes a good life? We've never seen projects of such a large scale in the niche. So what might be the cornerstone of our mental well-being? What makes people live longer and truly happy? After 80 years of research, what is the secret formula to happiness? You know what? It turns out social connections are extremely important. And people who are more socially connected are happier, healthier, and they live longer. Quite interesting correlation. High-quality relationships seem to matter. And as I said in one of my previous videos, know that we're not talking about having as many friends as you can. In this case, quality is more prioritized than quantity. You don't have to have 500 friends and never spend time alone at all. That's not how the director of the study interprets the results. I usually think about productivity as something I want to be able to stick to in long term. Personally, for me, productivity and health are inseparable. So, mistake I'm talking about is not having high quality connections with others. Your friend who always understands you, who got your back, and whom you can trust, seems vital. And I know, building social connections isn't as easy as it sounds for some people, but it's really interesting. I had a friend who always said something that made me think a lot when I got home. I was like, wow, what an interesting perspective. Never heard and thought of it. I believe there are not so many as interesting and complex things in the world as how people think. Speaking of thinking, next mistake I added to this video is what's called all or nothing thinking. Basically, you view a situation in only two categories. If I get an F for the test, I'm a total failure. If I don't get 1000 subs this year, I'm a terrible YouTuber. If I don't look jacked when the summer comes, I'm a loser. If I don't have much money, I'm a failure. There are so many things you can use as a measure of success or failure. And especially with social media, it seems that competitiveness is as high as it has ever been. Let's imagine you're at the start of your journey of building your dream physique. And almost every single day, you see pictures of other people who look much better than you. And some of them are your age or even younger. Does it mean you're a loser? I personally don't believe you should think in these categories. Actually, it's one of the most common cognitive distortions when it comes to talking about cognitive behavioral therapy. If you don't know what it is, it's a form of psychological treatment, quite popular actually. The thing is, even if you think you're totally different from other people, the chances are your negative thoughts can be described by some of the well-known by therapists patterns. And all or nothing thinking is a good example. I think it's quite applicable to productivity as well. You didn't manage to do that important thing, then you're still watching my video. Great. There are 2 mistakes to go, so keep up. Next mistake. Inconsistent sleep. While creating this video, I realized that it's even more exciting than I thought. But let's start with more obvious, at least for me, things and gradually build up to the most interesting part of the mistake. Did you know that a bunch of studies show that shift work can negatively affect your alertness and cognitive performance? Like this one, for example. So in such cases, it's recommended to mimic night, even if it's not, and you should go to sleep after your shift. Keep your room dark and cold enough, but not too cold. Expose yourself to light when you're awake and stuff like that. Shift work may be bad for your health and productivity, but I don't judge people who do it, so don't get me wrong. But you should still know that working at night usually comes at a cost. To be honest, I love sleep. I can talk about it all the time. It might feel like 8 boring hours you don't even remember, but it's still so important. And I still don't like the mentality of working extra hours during sleepless nights. I don't even think I would be able to do it. When it's time to go to bed, I can fall asleep almost anywhere. So what is the interesting fact I wanted to share with you? Did you know that according to this study, when it comes to performance, moderate levels of fatigue is equivalent to or even greater than the effects of alcohol intoxication unacceptable when driving and working? Roughly speaking, according to this study, if you make this mistake, your performance will be equivalent to the performance of a drunk man. Why would you intentionally want to get yourself into a state of performance similar in some aspects to alcohol intoxication? And another shocking fact is that according to another study, around 10% of driving crashes severe enough to be reportable to the police involved drowsiness. That's a large number. Just think about it. 1/10. Sleep is an important trade-off. You haven't slept enough, you feel awful. At least I do feel so. Or maybe you've slept 12 hours and you missed too much of your potential productive time. By the way, 12 hours is something I just gave you as an example. It's not recommended to sleep for 12 hours every night. Last but not least, shallow work. I recently read, actually not so recently, about half a year ago, a book called Deep Work. It's quite popular among fans of productivity, time management and stuff like that. To be honest, I can't say it was revolutionary for me. I was already aware of some things mentioned there, but I like the concept. It's about the importance of focused, uninterrupted work sessions. That's the thing you might like nowadays. If you're working and your phone is distracting you all the time, no way you can sustain full focus on a task. Multitasking doesn't have a solid reputation anymore among self-help gurus. It sucks, though it feels like it doesn't. There are possible disadvantages to be aware of when it comes to multitasking. I know you can't avoid multitasking all the time, but at least sometimes not using your phone may work great. You can try deep work, especially when you want to perform a cognitively demanding task. And actually, these tasks should be important. If the task is hard, it doesn't mean that you should suddenly prioritize it. In my experience, most important tasks are often hard, but it doesn't necessarily work the other way around. So suppose you know you should study for exam. Cut things that may disrupt your concentration, maybe turn on the airplane mode, and try really immersing into the task. That's why it's called deep work. You're not trying to do your work and text your friend. At the same time, you have a purpose and you isolate yourself from things that can affect how concentrated you are. Alright, this is it. I truly hope this video is helpful. Subscribe if you want to see more, and definitely have a good day.